And greetings, programs, and welcome to a new episode of the Awesome Friday podcast, recorded specially for you in person for a change. And that's super weird. That's right, folks. Simon and I are in the same room, which hasn't happened in...
God, three years maybe? We used to do it in the same room all the time.
I know.
At least...
Then there was some kind of global event that prevented us from
something.
socializing. But anyway, here we are to talk about movies. How are you this week?
Well, I've had the week off to look after my kids, who are on summer break, and I've taken a week off work, and I've done a lot of cool, fun stuff. To the point that I'm thinking, well, why am I working? Why do I work? Why do we work at all instead of spending time with our children? My children are now 11 and 8, and as you can probably attest, they are real, actual people.
They are, it's true.
With real personalities and
thoughts and opinions and everything.
They are as wonderful as they are exhausting, and I learn so much from them. And this week I have hiked, and we've played games, and we've had picnics. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Every day sending them to school. Like 5 out of 7 days a week I'm not seeing them. Yeah. So I'm having a bit of an existential crisis this week. How about you?
Sounds like business as usual in Simon's household.
It really does, doesn't it?
No, I'm fine. I just haven't been going to my day job, and that's it. That's all I do. Is this and that. It's yes. I don't have children. I just have cats and movies to watch, which is kind of also great. So. Although when you say it out loud, it sounds really sad.
I mean, no one's judging. You do have amazing cats. Let's not forget that.
That's true. That's because all cats are great. They're all good cats.
That's true. That's true. But some cats are better than others. The big news of this week is, of course, Warner Brothers falling apart. Hey, do you remember a time when Warner Brothers, as a name, was a definition of movie quality? Do you remember that?
I mean, not exactly, but I do remember when they at least seemed to give a shit about the movies they were making.
They're one of the classic companies. It's a bit like when Amazon bought MGM. It felt like the end of an era, and the end of Warner Bros. as a movie-defining company happened a long time ago. But this week, with the merger with Discovery, and they just cancelling finished movies, just like, we're going to write them off for tax purposes. Because that's the easy option.
So I'm sort of of two minds about this. Like, on the one hand, I honestly sort of get when the CEO of the company says, like, we don't believe this is going to make money. It's a business choice to, like, not release this and take the tax right. Like, from a business perspective, I would like to just first say that, sure. But from a how you handle that situation, by having the directors of the Batgirl movie find out at one of their weddings by like not calling them ahead of time and being like, this is what's going to happen, we're really sorry, we want to keep working with you, this is the choices we're making. No, people are finding out second and third hand about all of this stuff, and it's just awful. It's just not how you treat people that work for you or that you respect in any way.
Wait, you found out at his wedding?
Yeah, I can't remember which one, but one of them was getting married, and they were told at that wedding that that Batgirl had been cancelled.
Oh. That's a special kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Especially when they are, their reputation is that they are lovely, lovely, enthusiastic people.
And super talented directors. Like, I haven't seen any of their Belgian stuff, but Bad Boys for Life is a great movie.
Yeah, it's very good.
Their episodes of Ms. Marvel are among probably the best 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel. They have a really creative eye, and they're super talented people, and I feel really bad for them. But, Kevin Feige's going to call him up and be like, hey, you want more work? And it's funny because, like, on the one hand, it feels weird to celebrate the Disney cultural, what's the right word for that right now? Dominance? But at the same time, like, if they're going to treat their creatives well, like, and if Warner Brothers is going to help them out by being a shitty company, then what else are you going to do?
I just think that Warner have really, or whatever we call them these days, have shot themselves on the foot, because any actor with half a choice is going to avoid them like the plague in case their movie gets just written off for a tax break. And I don't know... So,
I mean, I don't really see that happening moving forward, just because, like... at this point, if the director, like, don't think it's that odd for like a new person to come into a company or even like a branch of a company and be like, everything the old guy did was terrible, I'm canceling all of it. Like, and now everything that went wrong, I'll blame on him, and everything that looks good from now on will be all me, baby. Like, that is totally normal corporate stuff. And so I imagine that, like, he'll just own all the successes and downplay all the ones that don't succeed moving forward. But, like, this just isn't, for me, again, it's not really that the business decision was bad. Like, maybe $90 million is a lot to spend on a movie that goes straight to streaming, but you just don't handle it this way.
Yeah.
Right?
Seems really short-sighted as well, because the DC have been trying for a while to salvage whatever's left after the whole Snyder debacle. Like, for years and years, they've been trying to make their own little MCU anyway. And the early test screenings of Batgirl were really, really positive. And more than anything, it heralded the return of Michael Keaton after 30 years, a break of playing Batman. And it just seems like such a short-sighted decision to take a movie that is done, not even in production, but mostly done, and just throw it away.
And two of them too, because they canceled the animated Scoob sequel, which I never saw the first one, but apparently like is a perfectly fine movie.
It does different things. It's a different take on them and Scoob, and it's fine. But an animated movie as well, where the number of people involved in that film, and by all accounts, it was pretty much done. And the months and months and months of crunch and work that would go into that it's just heartbreaking for the people involved. I mean, imagine being, insert Batgirl actress name here,
Leslie
Grace, who's so good and so enthusiastic and has been so like into this chance of representing her culture as Batgirl, and it's just thrown away.
Yep.
And they are brilliant directors as well. I would have loved to have seen what they did with the property. So it's very sad. It's very, very sad indeed. And hopefully it doesn't herald more cuts. Like, is this now we're apparently crawling out of the pandemic and people aren't watching as much. I know the games industry is recording a massive dip in engagement across all the consoles. I wonder if the streaming services are starting to realise that they need to do more in order to keep people. And of course, they want their year-on-year targets to be the year where everyone had to stay in. Like, they're still trying to match that year, and of course it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. I mean, all of this it's all cromulent to the point. I mean, I think the thing is that even Netflix is slowing down on its $200 million blockbusters as well. I think everyone realizes that spending this amount of money on direct streaming releases is not a sustainable business model. Especially because of the way that streaming platforms make money, right? Like, it's not an immediate... When you release a movie, it doesn't do well in its first weekend, it's effectively a flop. But a streaming film has to sustain over time and be a thing that attracts people to the platform or keeps them on the platform so they can watch it again. And what's really stupid about it is that every indication is that Batgirl would have been one of those, for me at least. So I was really looking forward to that movie. And I really hope that whatever Adil and Bilal do next, I will also watch, because they are great. And I don't want to get into it if you haven't seen it, but Warner Discovery had their earnings call where they outlined their future plans, and it's just a hellscape of corporate synergy, leaning very much towards the all of the Discovery side of things, and all of the ongoing cheap as shit reality TV stuff that they do. And their presentation was kind of misogynist and terrible. And
men like HBO.
Yeah.
Women like Discovery.
Yeah, it's terrible. But, whatever. Warner Brothers isn't going away. They've been around. This is their third sell-off that I can remember at least, right? Because they merged with Time Warner, and then they merged with AT&T, and now they're merged with Discovery. So they'll continue. And who knows what's going to happen.
But they won't cancel The Flash. Like,
I guess,
they
they've
said
spent...
outright that The Flash is something they're very excited about.
I think also what this comes down to is that, like, we're reasonably plugged into what's happening in Hollywood. And I think lots of people, especially like in our Twitter circle, we're very plugged in. But I think if you ask like an average Joe moviegoer if they knew about even Ezra Miller and how terrible he's been in the last like 6 months, I'm not entirely convinced anyone would even know, right? Mm-hmm. And they sort of bank on that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I bet you the average person on the street had no idea there was a Batgirl movie even being made, mm-hmm. let alone having been unceremoniously dumped. So
yeah, maybe.
You know, at the end of the day, I think it helps to remember that we do exist in somewhat of a bubble. Mm-hmm. And yeah, no, that's all I gotta say. That's fine.
Yeah. Well,
either way, it sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks. So I just feel for all the people involved. Like, businesses, decisions aside, all these cast and crew that have finished these 2 movies, it must be so demoralizing to have all your work thrown out like that. It's terrible. So mm-hmm. hopefully they all find an abundance of work in the future. That would be the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Far away from Warner Discovery.
Yeah, hopefully. Well,
so what are we talking about this week?
I mean, yeah, let's transition to something a little bit happier. We're going to talk about 2 movies as we are wont to do. Both of them from Warner's competition this week. Both of them from... what?
Oh, doing this one first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Both of them from Disney. One recently released in streaming after a theatrical run, and one gone straight to streaming, which is kind of ironic when you think about it. But we're going to start with Pixar's latest film, Lightyear, which is... Now, I find this movie kind of confusing because this is apparently... Lightyear is... So, the kid in the Toy Story movies, Andy, who bought a Buzz Lightyear doll in the first movie, he bought that doll because it was a doll from his favorite movie. And Lightyear is that movie.
Yeah.
And let me just go on record and say that, like, I don't think that's a bad idea. Uh-huh. But it is a lot of lore to explain for what is ostensibly a children's film.
Yes. I got a question for you. How old is Andy in Toy Story?
He's 10,
Ish? He's about 10 or 11, right?
I mean, he is...
You're going to go to Google now. Probably he feels like an 11-year-old or a 10-year-old. He feels like my son's age, kind of.
I mean, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
Does Lightyear feel like a movie that would be a 10, 11-year-old's favourite movie? On any level? I
mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, when I was 10, one of my favorite movies was The Last Starfighter, so maybe.
Last Starfighter is much better than Lightyear because it goes places. It actually is interesting in the worlds that it explores. I'm cutting to the chase a bit with Lightyear. So Lightyear is about Buzz Lightyear is a space ranger, is on a mission on a planet that they feel is safe, but then it turns out it's very much not safe. There's lots of bugs that attack them.
And vines. Lots of vines.
Lots of vines and bugs. So it's alive! It's the vines! And so he tries to fly away in his turned-up spaceship. And he likes to self-narrate, like make Shatner-style captain's logs in his arm pop up. If you've seen... of course you've seen Toy Story. You've seen the way that he speaks into his arm. Everything he does in there has some kind of lore kind of equivalent in this movie. And so they try to fly away when they're being attacked. He and his crew try to fly away, and through his own overconfidence, the ship clips a cliffside and crashes.
Yeah, he tries to take off at an unsafe trajectory.
Yes. And so they stay on the planet and they build like a... It seems to be the plan is that they're going to build a little planet station whilst fending off the aliens to build a ship that can go so fast it can go home and take them home back to Earth.
Or onto their destination. Not really clear.
It's not
which
really
of those things it is.
But it turns out that every time he does a hyper speed jump, he jumps 4 years into the future.
Yeah, he approaches relativistic speeds, and time passes at a different rate.
So when he comes back, everyone's a little bit older, and he is obsessed with completing the mission. He feels guilty for keeping everyone there anyway. So he does test after test, and each time it's jump after jump. It's another 4 years.
By the numbering of the ships that he flies, he goes through 15 different jumps.
Right.
And the shortest of those would have him jump 4 years into the... So by the end of the 15th jump, he is like... His best friend's grandmother is a grown woman who he interacts with.
Mm-hmm.
And
granddaughter.
Granddaughter. That's the... What did I say?
Grandmother.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
So the main chunk of this movie is him with a bunch of misfits. So the planet's kind of been invaded by the Zurg, who obviously the enemies from Toy Story, and the grown up granddaughter, and her squad becomes his squad, and he learns to be part of a squad. And it's a collection of bad ideas.
I mean, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally forgettable. It's fine. It's the epitome of a 3-star, put it in front of a kid for an afternoon type movie. Although I understand your kid didn't like it, but
I'm very interested in my son's reaction. He finds good things to say about most things, even if they weren't great. He'll talk about bits that he likes, and we watch a lot of movies now, so he's quite he has good ways to explain the parts of the movies he liked. He came back from this movie and he's like, I hated it. I hated it. It was terrible. And he's talked about the time jumps and the time travel, and when you watch Toy Story and you imagine where Buzz Lightyear comes from, the way he sort of handles himself as a toy kind of paints this very Star Warsy, like space opera, like space spanning planets and aliens, and it's weird that the movie that it actually comes from is actually really only in one place and really with one set of aliens, and the whole thing to me just felt like a series of badly conceived ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the first half better than the second half. I like the half of the movie where it's just Rip Van Winkle, basically. And then in the second half where it's established early on that he doesn't like rookies, he doesn't like having to like teach or train or any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the back half of the movie is literally just him learning to have to like to do that, and that it's a good thing and all that. It's pretty standard stuff.
It's so standard, and that's the surprising thing from Pixar as well.
Yeah.
And I think
but the part where he's like continually jumping through in time, I thought was really interesting and really well executed. It's just that once they stop doing that, it becomes a pretty bog standard movie.
Yeah.
And
so none of the spark of their other, like, where Pixar, when they do sci-fi, like WALL-E is exceptional, and I kind of wish. It kind of feels like this movie is justifying itself as somebody thought, what if we make a Buzz Lightyear movie but without Tim Allen, because he's problematic. Like, how would that work? How could we make more Buzz Lightyear without Tim Allen? And it feels like the movie is trying to justify that at all points, and it never really succeeds for me. Like, it seems like quite restricted by its own boundaries. And if I were 11-year-old boy, as I was once, this would absolutely not be anywhere near my favorite movie.
You didn't skip 11?
I decided to participate in 11 from beginning to end.
And I guess
it's not that interesting a movie.
I mean, yeah, and the thing, I think you're right in that, like, I think if this movie didn't feel like a gratuitous setup for more movies, especially toward the end, mm-hmm. it would be more easy to justify as, like, maybe this was Andy's favorite movie. Because I don't know if you remember in the 80s, but oftentimes, the last scene of a movie, like, say, The Last Starfighter, the last scene is like, let's go on more adventures. Yeah. But the movie itself is fairly self-contained, right? Like, there's no, like, obvious sequel bait throughout the story. It's literally just, I came back to Earth and got the girl so we can go do more stuff at the very end. And this movie is very much like, look at all this stuff that we're doing that you will want to see more of later. And I think if it was a little more contained in that way, a little more restrained in that way, it might be even better, a better film.
Maybe I just wanted to see more grandeur, like more interesting things. The things that happen in this movie were not that interesting. It was all very much in a single location, and
So you wanted more storytelling and less corporate synergy?
yes, I did. And the planet they're on is quite dreary visually. The insects, they soon find a reason why the insects stop being a problem, and the Zerg who the Emperor or the King Zerg, whatever he's meant to be called, they had an idea for who could this be as a twist, and I don't think it's a good idea. Like it's just not a good idea, and the whole movie is a bad idea trifle.
It only, yeah, I mean, the reveal of who exactly Zerg is only begs more questions about the time travel mechanics that are already a bit loosey-goosey.
It doesn't make sense at all.
But Socks is great. Like the robot cat is great.
And of course you'd love the cat.
I mean, that's because the cat is great.
Yeah, the cat is great. But
I am unashamed to say that I would like a Socks toy.
Absolutely. That's the only great part of this movie.
Like, I basically want Disney to buy up whatever portion of Sony used to make the Aibo robot dog and to just make Socks the robot cat.
No, that's funny. I've thought for years and years about buying an Aibo. I used to sell them in one of my previous lives as working in a convenience store. We sold Aibos in our technical department for some reason. And they were awesome even then. And this is going back like 1992. And they were really, really cool then. So I would love an Aibo. But you're right. That a Socks Aibo with his little recharging red ears and his USB tail.
Yeah,
would be amazing.
And Chris Evans is fine, and Keke Palmer is fine, and Taika Waititi. Like, everyone in it is fine. It's actually a cast of superstars, really.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. Do with that information what you will.
I mean, it's not good. It's a 2-star movie for me. It's a series of terrible ideas.
I'm really struggling, actually, to say whether it's like a... I think if I was still giving... I think I have to give it a 2 out of 5. Because I think I would give it 2.5, ultimately. But as my rules state, a 2.5 is a high 2. So it's a 2.
It's just badly conceived from front to back. Like, I finished that movie and was just... It didn't feel like a Pixar movie. It felt really muted and limited and uninteresting, and compared to pretty much any other Pixar.
I guess the other thing that bothers me, and I know this is like, I'm an adult and this movie is for children, but like, the speed at which so they crash land on this planet, and the speed at which they're able to like deploy and build this starbase and expand it into a fully functioning colony. Like, why do they need him to go off planet in any, like, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And the time
like they could just fix the colony ship with the technology they demonstrate throughout the film. And I know this becomes a plot point later in the film that maybe, you know, they're like, we've made our lives here and that's fine, but like early on when they're all still trying to get away, it feels like they could have just fix the ship.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
that was interesting you say that. That was one of my son's main points, is that the time stuff didn't make any sense. And he has watched a lot of time travel movies.
I mean, the time travel stuff doesn't... The time travel stuff is fine. My point is that past a certain point, it's way, like, they didn't need it.
But the twist doesn't make any sense. At all.
I mean, the twist is very... Like, I'm fine to hand wave that away. It's fine. It's a very hand-wavy moment. But, like, what I'm talking about is that, like, we're going to build this ship that can go at hyperspeed so that it can take us home or whatever. But first off, they immediately discover that hyperspeed causes time dilation. And then, but also, if they could build this, like, fully functioning colony and a launch pad and a series of new... like, why do they need to do this at all, is my question. Like, why didn't they just look at the colony ship and be like, let's break out what we need to, fix the ship, and take off again? Mm-hmm. That's where my adult brain is going with this.
That's fair.
So, I mean, yeah, it's not a great movie.
It's not even a great movie for kids. Based on the reaction of my kids, it's not a great movie for kids.
Yeah.
And we, like, we watched Luck as well on Apple, which is John Lasseter's new thing with Sky.
I mean, the less said the better, because he's a terrible human.
And it's awful, and they hated it as well. And so whenever there's a kids movie, my barometer is them, because you can tear it apart as an adult, but if they like it, you got to look at it again. But like with Lightyear, they had no love for it at all.
Yeah. Well, let's stop there then, because let's talk about something we do want to talk about.
Finally. What's the second film we're talking about to
do? So just released to Hulu in the United States and Disney Plus here in Soviet Kazakhstan is the Dan Trachtenberg directed Predator prequel movie Prey, starring Amber Midthunder as a Native American warrior who goes up against a predator, and it is wonderful.
Oh my god, this movie.
It's so good. I don't know why this... I mean, I have an idea, an understanding of why this movie went direct to streaming, but like, I would have loved to have seen this movie in a theater.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the cinematography is incredible. It's one of those movies that begins with scenery inside in just wildlife noises, and the scope of these shots is so beautiful. I want to be like, have you ever felt like you want to crawl inside a movie just so you can see it without anything in your periphery?
Yeah, I mean, I watch movies with Roger Deakins as a DP all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. But this movie, like, my TV is not big enough. I want this to fill my eyes. I want to be in a dark room, because it just looks incredible. The confidence that Dan Trachtenberg has like shown. This is his second movie, and he's taken on a prize 80s franchise that, to be honest, has not been treated very well in the last couple of decades, with the Aliens versus movies, and even the last couple have not been great. And just be so confident in telling what is ultimately a coming of age movie that happens to be in the Predator franchise. It's such a clever movie.
Yeah.
And the parallel story and and how narrowed this girl who wants to prove to be a warrior, and they're just... I love the part where she tries to follow them on a hunt, and the other warriors, the men, are like, "Why are you coming? We don't need a cook." And she's just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
And she is determined to show that she can do this. And she's not great at a lot of it, and she learns a lot of things towards the end that she then uses. It's one of those wonderful, satisfying stories where the protagonist uses what they've learned in order to finish the story.
Yeah, I mean, the basic synopsis of the film is that Amber Midthunder plays Naru. She's a young woman who is sort of, living the hunter-gatherer life as a woman in this tribe in 1719 in the Comanche tribe, but she wants to be a hunter, and long story short, she figures out that there's something out there, that something is a predator, and no one believes her until it's too late, and then she has to confront the predator. Like, it's a pretty standard Predator story. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many of the Predator movies you've watched, but it's pretty straightforwardly a Predator movie, and yeah, it mixes in some wonderful coming of age elements, some excellent representation of Comanche culture, and Amber Midthunder's great. I hope she becomes a megastar based on this. She's already, I've already been aware of her especially from Legion, in which she was also really good.
But, she's in Legion?
Yeah, in the Legion TV show with Dan, what's his name from Downton Abbey? Why can't I remember his name? Anyway, she's really, really good. And actually, they got all First Nations actors to play the First Nation characters. There's a lot of really authentic feeling First Nations cultural moments, lots of First Nations languages without subtitles, which I actually really liked. When they do meet some white people, they're all French, and there's no subtitles, which I also really liked.
Yeah.
And everyone in it is great, and it really commits to its admittedly very simple core premise. And everything between Naru and her brother, because her brother's a well-regarded hunter in the tribe, and that's what she wants to be, and their whole dynamic is an excellent big brother little sister dynamic. And there's not really anything to do with her father, but her mother is an interesting presence as well. And just everything she does. She even has a dog that's great. There's a great dog in this movie.
And it does. I will not spoil that. But yes, the dog is wonderful.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how much I'm just rambling at this point, but this movie's great and you should definitely watch it. Is the log line of my review of this film.
It absolutely should have been a theatrical release, and there are business reasons why it wasn't. But see, when you watch this, it screams for a room full of people, and honestly, the last half an hour of this movie, which is the culmination of everything Naru has learned really through mistakes. Like she's not the kind of person who knows what she's doing at the beginning.
Yeah, there's some real trial and error stuff. It's really...
And so the culmination of this story, I just want to be in a room full of people because there's a peak. And I get the feeling that will be reflected vocally in the group of people. It's one of those movies you want to scream at. And the action direction is incredible. There's one very long take where it's Naru versus insert antagonist here, or multiple antagonists, and it is just
actually have it's interesting because that scene you're talking about where she takes on multiple bad guys is a really great example of things we've talked about very recently on this show about how stop cutting so fast and let me see what's happening. And because it's a long take, that is true. You can see it, but then also the camera's a little bit on the shaky side, so it's not perfect.
It's very close as well, but I kind of, for me, that really, really worked.
I'm just saying it's probably my favorite scene in the movie, to be clear.
Yeah.
At least my favorite action scene in the movie. It's really well done. I just wish that the camera had been a little bit further away and a little bit steadier. Because there's one moment where she has this weapon that's basically a tomahawk on a rope, and it goes sideways on her at one point in the fight, and it's not entirely clear what's happening in the moment because the camera's moving so, I guess the generous word would be dynamically.
I didn't really stand out for me. I love the flashes of humour as well. Even from the Predator, there's one very funny moment. I don't know if you picked up on this. When the Predator clearly goes, huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
and again, that's in the middle of a different ensemble fight. And it's so inventive, and there is a number of moments which are full on, like mouth open, lean forward. And it's really, really nice to... I love Predator. Predator's one of the movies from my childhood that really defined my love for sci-fi and horror, and I don't mind Predator 2 even. I quite like Predator 2, but the other Predator movies have not been great.
I would say that, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is the best Predator movie since Predator, and I like a lot of the Predator. The Predator was not a very good movie, but I like Predators, and I like Predator 2. And I can find some nice things to say about Aliens versus Predator, at least the first one. The second one is just straight garbage. But yeah, this is clearly it's such a wonderful return to form for the franchise and one thing, I think a lesser movie would also be a lot more fan servicey, and that's not to say that this movie doesn't have moments of fan service, but there's 3 very specific moments, all of which are executed extremely well. And within the context of the story, they all make perfect sense where they are. It's not just sprinkled in for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And one of them is to Predator 2, which I really appreciate. So yeah, I think it's a really, really well executed movie, well executed story. I think Dan Trachtenberg is 2 for 2.
He's a brilliant director.
Yep. And I would just like to also, while we're on the topic, because I don't want to forget to say it, because the score for this movie, which was made by Sarah Schachner, is brilliant. I haven't gone to add a score album to my Apple Music library faster than this one this year so far. As soon as the credits rolled, I was like, well, I need to have that on my phone. Yeah. It's so good. It's the main Predator themes are reimagined wonderfully. The original themes for the characters are all great. It's got a real Last of the Mohicans vibe at certain points, which is another score that I absolutely love. And it really works. It really helps carry and complement the emotions of the film. It's big and epic, but it doesn't like tell you how to feel. It just goes along with you. It's a really wonderful score for a wonderful movie.
And it's mixed in with moments of stillness as well, where Naru is trying to be a hunter and is just listening and breathing, and they let us be with her instead of filling it with emotive music. There's moments of just forest noise, and it's so effective when like you hear the animals stop moving, and you just know, you start hearing what she can hear, and you can hear the danger approaching, and it doesn't rush any of it. Like there's a lot of this movie doesn't have the predator in it, and I think that's so clever. Like the a lot of the Predator movies, I feel, is like, let's just cut to him skinning people and chasing people, and like people want to see the fight and they want to see how they outsmart the Predator. Well, a huge chunk of this movie is got nothing to do with the Predator.
Yeah, there are two sort of gratuitous Predator moments right near the beginning, but they do both serve a purpose, which is nice. One of which, I guess, probably wasn't really necessary, but one of which that, yes, it's a gratuitous moment of like the Predator being the Predator that we all remember, but also it serves to remind us that the Predator is, has good reflexes and has tools at his disposal. And as a total side note, I also just really like that this movie is set in 1719, and I actually really like that not only is he facing more primitive people, but his tools are all less advanced versions of the ones we've already seen.
Yeah, the redesign was fantastic.
Like the redesign of the and there's a clear you can definitely see like a clear line from where this Predator's stuff is to where the 1980s Predator's tools are. It's a very, very well thought out regression of the Predator technology.
And story relevant as well. Like the different weaponry is in context important that it is different.
Yep, 100%.
And the face has had a bit of a redesign. It's a bit longer, and I think it's better for it as well.
Yeah,
it's way more alien-like.
Yeah, the new Predator mask, which is made out of bone, or appears to be made out of bone anyway, gives the Predator a real sort of horse-faced look, or Sauron from Lord of the Rings type look, and it's very effective. They're kind of reusing, at least partially, the design of the bigger Predator from The Predator a couple years ago, but it's much more effective in this movie. So...
Yeah, it's just really clever. I was really struck by how clever this movie is to find a Predator story, but through the focus of this other hunter, who, because we know the Predators now. For them, coming to a planet and hunting the strongest hunter is a thing they must do to prove themselves as well. We know that from the other movies.
Yeah. And
so to have that parallel storytelling. With so much emphasis on the Comanches and so much emphasis on Naru, and none of it is rushed and none of it is just for exhibition. Like, it's all really important, and she is given time to show that she understands the land and she understands the people. And then you've got the wider metaphor of like the imperial colonizers turning up with advanced weaponry and trying to roll over the natives, and the natives using the land. And what I really, really liked as well is that the solution to beating the Predator in this movie is not the same solution as beating the Predator in the original.
Although, I don't want to...
Not directly. And they do... I think it's very, very funny that at one point, I think Dan Trachtenberg is fucking with us, because he kind of takes us down a route that is almost exactly the same and then uses it in a different way.
Yeah. It to use the George Lucas term, it rhymes very nicely.
It really does. It really, really does, yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't know what else I can really say about this movie other than go see it. I really hope Amber Midthunder's been around for quite a while, and she's been in a bunch of stuff, and she's actually going to be in the upcoming live action version of Avatar: The Last Airbender as well, which I'm very much looking forward to.
I didn't know that. Cool.
And she's been in a bunch of movies, and she's great. Dakota Beavers, who plays her brother, and I'm going to mispronounce this, sorry, but I think it's Taabe.
Yeah.
He's only been in this.
Is this his first thing?
It's his second credit ever, and the first one was as himself in a TV show.
No.
And he's wonderful.
Yeah.
But they also have, like, Michelle Thrush and Julian Black-antelope. Like, there's a lot of really great First Nations representation, and all of the performances are great. Like, it's uniformly great.
Yeah.
So
and it goes to some really interesting places. It doesn't just stick with the tribe. There's a lot of drama within the tribe. In fact, there's a moment of quite extreme drama within the tribe that is really interesting how it fits into the story. And then it also ties in this idea of the Europeans colonizing the land and their kind of influence and their complacency with feeling that they're the top of the food chain.
yeah,
And
it does really nicely play with those ideas, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there's a lot literally happening. There's a lot of metaphor happening, but on top of that, even before all that, you've got this incredible action movie that's incredibly shot and choreographed, that is genuinely shocking and exciting, with absolutely one of the most satisfying action movie endings that I've seen in a long time. So satisfying.
It's a really great example of how much meaning and thought you can layer into a premise when that premise is clear and simple.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's a real, like, when you think about, and I hate to pick on Marvel, but they're the big target, right? So when you think about Marvel and how much thought they put into expanding the universe and making sure everything's interconnected and how much lore is there, this movie doesn't have any of that, and doesn't even mean to. Doesn't, like, there's about I think there's exactly 3 callbacks to previous Predator movies, and the core plot is Naru knows there's a predator and nobody else will believe her, and that's it. That's that's literally the whole story, and it is great from start to finish.
That's brilliant.
So let me guess. I'm gonna read your mind and say that you're gonna give this a 5 out of 5.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, this is a 5. This is a clear 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I loved it too. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
Yeah. I find it very strange that we're in the timeline where a brilliantly made sequel to a treasured property is straight to streaming, like without any theatrical run. Things are weird at the moment to get to that point. Like,
it's all business stuff though, right? Like, as I understand it, and I have exactly no inside knowledge, but as I understand it, the reason it's straight to streaming is that it's a 20th century release, which means it was a Fox release originally. And 20th Century still has some streaming rights agreement with HBO Max for things that are released in theaters that hasn't expired yet. So in order for it to be a Disney property and to, like, it needs to be released on streaming. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. But the answer is it's all bullshit licensing rights issues. And that's a shame because this movie would do gangbusters in a cinema.
Oh, it would do brilliant. And it would look so good as well. And it's really, out of all the movies this year, the only other film that I really truly think is enhanced by the big screen, in fact there's 2 other movies, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a brilliant big screen movie, as is Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
This is up there with them. Like, this would be enhanced massively by seeing it on a big screen with lots of people in a dark room. But it's already amazing at home, don't get me wrong. But I really hope the reception it's got, which has been so positive from so many people, it does something to turn the cogs and actually drive a theatrical release, if that's even possible with this. I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know. But I hope
really
I hope one day I get to see it in the theater for sure.
Yeah. All right, good.
So-
So go see Prey. Go to your TV and watch Prey. Like, go and watch the brand new Predator movie at home that you've probably already paid for.
I do have one note about the movie. One thing, I guess there's two things I think would make it better. One, there's one scene that takes place in a place that has very little context in the story that I wish was cleaned up a little bit. And I also wish so if you watch on, again, Hulu in the States, Disney Plus here in Canada, you can watch a version of this that's in Comanche, which I think is really cool, just for the record.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think the movie would have been better. And again, I understand all the business bullshit reasons why they didn't do this, but I think it would have been better if they had just shot the movie in Comanche and presented it with subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Disney's never going to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I 100% believe it would have been better in that context.
Certainly a bit more authentic, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I agree with you.
It's not a deal breaker.
No.
Don't get me wrong. I just kind of like, if we're going to do the representation, we should do the representation, you know?
Yeah.
But that there is a Comanche dub of it at all is
That's massive.
massive and super interesting. And I watched this movie last night as of the time we're recording this. And then after my wife went to bed, I watched the last half hour of it again. So I can't wait to watch it again, but with the Comanche dub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good.
Hopefully there's another one. Like, I'm not going to spoil the ending. The ending's tied up, but there's something in the credits that kind of hints there's another one.
And watch the credits, because the credits are all done in the style of a cave painting animation, and it's wonderful. Just stay and watch them. They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, what have we got coming up next week then?
Oh, we've got 2 more movies, and I don't know what they are. No, I think it's all very up in the air as of right now. But if all goes to plan, we'll be covering the new Netflix release, Day Shift, next week. And something else. I don't know what something else is yet.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the end of our show, because that's the end of our show.
We have to go eat dinner. Our wives are preparing dinner upstairs, so let's go and do that.
Yes. Which is fine. We will do it next time. So thank you very much for listening. We love each and every one of you. If you've liked what you've heard, please, tweet at us at AwesomeFridaysCA, or Simon is at Temporary Pen, or I am SmathUAF. And if you, again, give us a 5-star review. Give this episode a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice.
This is the prey of podcast episodes, so you should give us 5 stars, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, let's not go crazy, but and again, if you'd like to support us more directly, we do have a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and that'll all be linked in the show notes, along with a link to this episode's homepage, where you can find all of our other content. We also produce this here in Vancouver on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. Thank you so much for joining us on this awesome Friday.
Thanks, bye.